UUMs is to present the mission's final report to the authorities and the public within the country in which we have been observing. The UUM would also discuss the conclusions and the recommendations with local stakeholders in the country to determine possible ways forward to implement the recommendations made, and of course to engage in a cooperation if that is the will of the hosting country. The return visit of the UUM Zimbabwe was foreseen in the administrative arrangement that was signed by the EU delegation and the Zimbabwe Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. Unfortunately, the conditions did not allow for it to take place. Prior to the deployment of the mission, it became clear that the Zimbabwean authorities lacked the political will to allow the UUM return visits to be carried out according to its long-standing methodology. This includes key activities such an inclusive and robust dialogue around the report, of course, and its recommendations with a wide range of stakeholders, including civil society, media, political parties. They did not provide any reason for why they saw a need to put restrictions on these visits. The UUM highlights that this administrative arrangement stipulates also that Zimbabwean authorities should have granted the mission access to all relevant interlocutors. Yet, the mission faced significant challenges to meet with official bodies at the national level, despite repeated requests and also a good level of flexibility from our side. These include, just to give a very clear example of what I'm saying, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, the ZEC, which the UUM was only able to meet once in all our observation, and which was unfortunately equally unavailable for meetings with the chief observer, with me, and the European Parliament delegation, the other colleagues from Parliament that came to observe on the ground. While, let me underline also this aspect, other observer organizations were granted repeated access several times. Such behavior is unprecedented in my long time as a politician, parliamentarian, and election observer. This is something that really surprised me and shocked me at the same time. This lack of meaningful access was coupled with an extensive, coordinated, and continued disinformation campaign against the UUM and the other international observation efforts on the part of some national media. This reporting was based on lies and violated any journalistic standards. These lies, published particularly by state media, put in danger the safety of our observers on the ground. While we do recognize the independence of the media, of course, we took note also that the government did not respond at any time to this defamation campaign, despite its commitment in the administrative arrangement to ensure the personal safety of all the members of the UUM. While the UUM concludes its work with today's presentation, the EU will continue to be available for the assistance. Aspirations of the citizens of Zimbabwe to live in a free and in a democratic society is a core principle of the European Union and of our action, one that the European Union will always defend no matter what. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We open now the floor for questions and answers. If you could please introduce yourself once you have the word by name and tell us for which media outlet you work. Let's try to make this work. It's a little different from an in-person press conference, but let's try to get this up and running. Raise your hand if you do have a question for us, please. Do we have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
I see a question from Samsung SM whatever. Can you please turn up your volume, your microphone, get closer? We cannot hear you.
Okay. My name is Crispin Tabra from Choice Media Africa. I would like to ask on this final report that do you see the chances of Zimbabwean government?
Sorry for interrupting. We cannot hear a word you're saying. Can you move closer to the microphone? It's impossible to understand what you're asking. Thank you.
Okay. Let me look for the mic. I don't know if you can hear me now. No, my mic.
Still very low, the volume. Please increase.
Okay.
It's not okay.
I don't know if you can hear me now.
The audio is very bad. Perhaps you can turn up both the sound on your laptop or on your telephone.
Okay, you can hear me now?
A bit better.
Yes, it's improving.
Okay, I said my name is Crispin Tabra from Choice Media Africa. Somebody's interrupting.
Please continue.
Go ahead.
I wanted to, in the event that the report is like denied by the government of Zimbabwe, what the other channels that can be used?
So in the event that the report is denied by the government, what other channels can be used?
Denied.
Denied, that's what he said. Or refused. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're doing it today.
yeah. Can I answer?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. In fact, as I said, our duty is to present the report, to make it publicly. Of course, the first interlocutor normally is the government, but we also are presenting this report to the media, to the civil society, to all the Zimbabwean people. So let's say that this is something that I think the whole Zimbabwe somehow will receive. As I say that, and I reiterate that aspect is going to be published as soon as this press conference is going to end. Then, of course, it's up to the Zimbabwean government to decide if you want to follow the recommendation we express, and if you want to engage with the European Union that is ready to provide cooperation, technical assistance on the recommendation as well. But of course, this is a matter of political will, and this is a free choice of the authorities. If we are requested, we are ready, we are willing to assist, but we cannot, of course, decide for the authorities. But I think also, in light of the important remarks I shared with you, that it's also a possibility, if it's decided in the sense for the media, for the civil society to campaign in favor of these reforms, if you share, of course, the reasonment, the motivation, the analysis we are going to present in the report. So I warmly recommend all of you to write that very carefully, to have a clear view, and because we assessed all single phases of the process before, during, and after the election day, always following very meticulously our methodology and our code of conduct in every single action and phase we have done. I hope I addressed and I answered to your question.
Could I also add that the recommendations that we make are long-term recommendations throughout the election cycle, and they're also geared to a variety of interlocutors. And so some of those recommendations are to the state authorities, of course, but then there are also recommendations that are made to civil society, to the media, to other interlocutors. And so over the period of the next 3, 4, 5 years, many of these recommendations can be brought to life if there is the will, as Mr. Castaldo had said, but also if there are initiatives amongst different interlocutors who are all addressed in this report.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. It's
My name is Admaya Masubu. I'm a freelance journalist. I want to understand to what extent did this information affect the quality of the elections and the participation of women? Did your report maybe dwell on that particular issue?
Yes.
Yes, so we in fact on the mission looked at all aspects of the election process from a long-term perspective. We had both a social media analyst who conducted a full-scale social media monitoring effort. We also had a human rights analyst who looked specifically at the inclusion of underrepresented populations, including women. And so if you look at the report, there are recommendations also made towards the participation of women in the process, and also the extent that disinformation played into the way that women were able to participate in the election process. I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but if you look in the final report in the full body, you will be able to find the details of those findings.
I'd like also to add that during our conversations and our exchange with many interlocutors, most of them, they were underlined the reforms that introduced quotas for women somehow was also seen as a kind of reduction of the space of participation for the ordinary constituency, in the sense that if you look at the numbers and the statistics in the previous electoral elections, harmonized election, there was more participation of women in the ordinary constituency. They I would say, the directly electing one. And of course, this gives the feeling somehow that despite maybe the noble intent to ensure that a certain quota within the parliament, this is also a bit maybe reducing the space for them to compete equally fairly with the male candidates in the normal constituency. And a similar also consideration was sometimes raised about the youth.
My name is Anastasia Ndlovu. I'm in Bulawayo. I would like you to tell us were the elections free and fair and credible?
Thank you for the question. I would like to remind you that it is not our job nor our commitment to give any certification of the elections. We cannot, of course, declare something like you asked, nor in a sense, nor in another. Our job is to follow and to, of course, observe all the different phases of the process, and then to say if they comply or they do not comply with the regional and international standards. And in that case, I could say, as we reiterated many times during our preliminary statement, and even today, that in several cases, the shortfall, they were not exactly complying with the regional and international standards. So there was, especially because many rights has been curtailed during the campaign, even during the election day itself. You are from Bulawayo, so probably you witnessed the fact that many police stations were opening with a very significant delay. So this is the kind of analysis and assessment we are holding.
Okay. My other question is, we noted that you withdrew funding for elections in Zimbabwe. When are you likely to fund elections again? Because we are having by-elections.
So the funding was withdrawn from the European Union, and with by-elections coming, when are they likely to refund?
Well, let me say that the decision of freezing the financial cooperation and the technical cooperation was taken by the EU delegation on the ground, according to the fact that, as I denounced, there was a lack of cooperation by the competent authorities. As I told you, I have a long-lasting experience as electoral observer and as a chief observer, and it never happened in my experience in my career to not being received by the competent electoral commission or anyway by the electoral body that is organizing the election on account. That was a clear sign of lack of political will, because as I repeat, many other chief observers, other missions have been received even several times. And that was a bit surprising me, because we didn't come by ourselves. We came and we deployed the mission under the invitation of the Zimbabwe government that freely decided to do that, and with an administrative arrangement that was regulating all the aspects of our presence on the ground, including the fact that we were entitled to have full support by the competent authorities to provide us all the data, to provide us all the information, to have a constant exchange. So, of course, having observed that, the EU delegation decided to proceed in this way. At this point, I cannot tell you if at some moment that there will be a decision again to relaunch a cooperation. I would say that everything is in the hand also of the competent authorities. If we will see positive signs, a change of approach, probably there could be the possibility to reconsider that, but it is not my duty to express any other analysis and decision in that regard, because I am the chief observer for our electoral mission, and this is a political decision that is going to be held by the EU delegation and our external action service. So all the authorities that have the duty and the right to do that.
And if I could just add that this, as Mr. Castaldo says, is outside of the remit of the EOM, but there are recommendations about key aspects of ZEC, such as their independence, their ability to work impartially, and these are the kinds of recommendations that one would expect to be worked on in the future. And in the implementation of these recommendations, the EU would stand ready to assist.
Okay, thank you on that one. My final question is on, as we are having by-elections, is EU going to observe the by-elections in Zimbabwe, or you are not coming?
Normally, we do not observe by-elections. So of course, the mission now, as I said, is ending up with this work, with the presentation of this final report. But I'm pretty sure that our competent authorities, and including for the External Action Service, will continue to be engaged and to have, of course, follow what are the further political developments in the country. But this is out of the scope of the election to continue to assess the by-election after, because our mandate is going to end with the presentation of the final report and the recommendations.
We have one more question, and then we will answer a couple of questions that arrived through the chat.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. We are very well, thank you. What about you?
Yes, my name is Marshall Bonya. I am a reporter for ZimLife. I have a few questions that I want to ask. My first question would be, if your recommendations cannot